there. So what we're going to do today is we're going to learn how to move solutions from environment to environment using a pipeline. Pipeline is an automated method of doing this. Usually if we're going to go ahead and transfer something from one environment to another, we would have to do that manually. But with the magic of pipelines, we can go ahead and automate that. So with the example I've cooked up here today, I have a couple different environments. I have a development environment, a test environment, and a production environment. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take what I've built inside our development environment, where developers go create apps and flows and automations and all those wonderful things, push that solution of components into the test environment, where our QA testers will go and put it through its paces. And finally, once testing is passed, move it out of the test environment and into production, where real life users will go ahead and use it. Couple of things that I've done in advance here, just prerequisites for building a pipeline are, number one, yes, I did go ahead and set up these environments. Number two, I'm working on an account that has system administrator level privileges. This one has my name, md@matthewdevaney.com. It's like my admin account or my service account. Service account is just account with high level privileges that can do anything inside an environment. And then thirdly, I've gone and created this solution called Contoso Device Order Management, which you may or may not recognize from the Microsoft Power Apps App in a Day tutorial. So what we want to do is we want to move this solution, which contains many different things, contains apps, flows, a model-driven app, a table, security roles, choices, all of these things, and move them from the dev environment to the test environment. So Fernando, I was hoping I could ask you a question here because you seem to have a microphone. Just wondering, have you ever used a solution before?
Yes.
Awesome.
What my question was, I am aware of pipelines in Power
Yep.
BI
Yep.
premium capacity, but not in Power Apps.
Okay. Perfect. So, sorry, that wasn't the question, was it? That was just you telling me that you know how to use
Yes,
it in Power
that's a
BI for
statement.
purpose. Oh, okay.
If you could please elaborate a little bit about pipelines, if what's the feature that you will use.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this pipeline to move all of the things that we built from the dev environment to the test environment, where testers are going to go ahead and test it. And we've placed all these things inside of a solution. The reason that we want to do that instead of importing and exporting them one by one is usually when you are building an app or a flow, like it's not just one thing that you build and have to move it over. You're usually building a set of things, right? You build a app and maybe it has a couple of connected flows, maybe it has some tables beside it. So you never want to go ahead and move just one thing from one environment to the next. We like to put things inside of solutions and move it over. That being said, a solution only holds components. It does not hold data. So these apps that I'm moving over and through the environments, I'm just going to go ahead and open one up. This is a Canvas app that sits inside of this solution. And really all a solution is just a folder. It's just a zip file. And go ahead and open this Canvas app. Do you export data flows inside the solutions too? Yes, you can add a data flow to a solution. That is true. So here we have a Canvas app, which we're going to be moving over. It has some data inside of it, which may or may not be hard-coded. But in this case, it's just going to move the app over and not the solution. To answer your question, Fernando, if we go back to the previous screen here, can you add a data flow? If we go to, there we go, automation, you can in fact add a data flow to a solution and move it across environments. So if I was creating a new one from scratch and I wanted to add something new or an existing like data flow or something else, I could click on one of these things here, add it to my package, click on this, go ahead, click add, and add it to my solution. So if we're doing this in the more traditional way, what we would do is we would come over to this solution right here. We would click on the Export Solution button. We could publish all of our changes. Go ahead and click Next right there. Next question we're going to get is, do you want to export a managed or an unmanaged solution? So two types of solutions. Would anyone like to come off mic here and tell us the difference between an unmanaged and a managed solution? Sorry, it's kind of hard when we're not in the room there. Sometimes I like to call on volunteers, so it's not just me talking there. Okay, so difference between those two things is when we export all of these items, these apps and flows inside of an unmanaged solution, it allows us to open it up and edit it once again. So it's useful to store things inside an unmanaged solution when you're working in a development environment. Why? Because you're actively working on the things. But when we move apps and flows and data flows and everything else over to the test and production environments, we don't want people to get into those things and to start to edit them because that could cause them to break. So therefore, when we move it over to another environment, the test environment, we're going to choose manage. So I go ahead, I click export. Again, this is not the pipeline. This is just me going ahead to export the solution and import to show you the traditional way of doing it. And just import it on the other side to show you how to get it in there, more traditional manner. Any questions so far?
No.
No? All right. So we'll just wait a moment for this solution to export. It does take a little bit. If you want to see how it's going, you can click on the history right here, and you can see that, oh, we've it's already been successful. It's just kind of taking a moment for this thing to catch up. So we would go ahead and download this solution. It would extract it to a download folder on my computer. Then what we would do is we would go to our next environment. And by the way, all of those apps and flows that I just showed you do not exist in the test environment currently. That's where our testers do the testing. So we go to Solutions, Import Solution, click Browse, go to Downloads. I'm surprised this Downloads folder isn't full of cat pictures. It usually is for the next blog article. Click Next. Then it's just going to take a moment to process. Go ahead, click Import. Click on the history here. We can see the progress of things. It's still kind of chugging along. And in just a moment or two, it'll go ahead and import into this environment. But we're gonna skip ahead because this will take a few minutes, and we'll just come back and look and make sure it's done that, because actually building the pipeline will take a little bit to do that. You might ask yourself, wow, that was so simple. Like, why would you ever want to build a pipeline moving one solution at a time? Well, sometimes when you're building an app or a solution that's very, very large, you'll distribute it across multiple solutions. And then I know that I was working on a project that had about 20 different solutions for one thing that I built. We put security rules in one, we put tables in another, we put apps and flows in another. It's just how we decided to segment it. And I tell you, it was pretty hard to remember how to import all those things in the same order. So number one, if you use a pipeline or an automated way of doing things, you'll never forget to put things in the right order. Number two, you can also use source control. So source control, you might have heard of GitHub before. I'm sure there's other websites like Bitbucket and that type of thing um, that will allow you to check in your code and allow you to save your code so that you can go ahead and keep track of it and manage it and also revert back when you have a problem. And the nice thing is, if you check in an entire solution with all of the things inside of it, just like I go ahead and click right here, um, you can restore it to the same, to have all of these items inside of the solution at the same point, right? Otherwise, you'll just be guessing, hey, which one do I want to go ahead and bring back to version 1.0, right? Is it this one? Is it this one? No, you typically want to bring them all back to so-called 1.0 at the same time. And the third thing is, the third reason I like using pipelines instead of doing automated is you can always be assured that the solutions are going to move through an environment, like the environments in the proper way. What if somebody exports a solution to dev and doesn't know we have a test environment, puts it straight to prod? And what if they do that before they have any approvals? That's not good. That typically breaks things. So we like to use pipelines to make sure that the proper approvals are in place too, before someone puts a new solution into the production environment. So let's go ahead and build a pipeline. And once again, please just jump in if you have a question here. Very hard to tell what everyone's thinking in the room without actually being there with you. So, yep. Okay. We're going to build a pipeline. To do this, we're going to log into a place called Azure DevOps. If you've ever used Azure DevOps before, please go ahead and put that in the chat or have a little reaction there in Teams. Just want to know if you have any familiarity with Azure DevOps. I'm going to sign out so we can do this from the start. Oh, someone has a head shaking no GIF. Okay. That's all right. Okay, I'm going to go back to dev.azure.com because I was signed in. Tina says, I'm a noob. That's okay. Tara says, just a little. Marcel says, not yet. All right, well, let's get started. Now, I really, really like Azure DevOps because you can do so many different things in it. You can keep track of your projects and how they're progressing. You can write your backlogs and user stories inside of it. You can create pipelines. You can do source control, which means to check in your code at certain points so you can go forward and backward, right? Just it's kind of like version control and document. You can create test scripts. And guess what? You can do this all for free. It's completely free for up to 5 users in an organization. So yay. All you have to do is go to dev.azure.com and go to sign into Azure DevOps. Now, me, I go straight to my projects, but you'll just be guided through a free sign up, a couple of screens there, and then you'll be in. And the first thing we want to do is create a new project. So I'm going to call this project Portland ALM demo. And yeah, certainly you can put spaces in your names and stuff like that, but I guess it's just a habit that I don't. So I'm gonna, and then you choose a private project because you don't want other people to be accessing your code. Choose version control Git and work process item. Doesn't matter. I'm going to choose Scrum. Let's pop into pipeline land. So this is what a project looks like when you first start it up. Pretty boring, but you can start to put some details about your project in here and compile some statistics. Like I said, you can create work items, boards, backlogs, kind of like Jira or Confluence, create repos for source control pipelines, test plans, yada, yada, that sort of thing. So first thing that we have to do here before we create a pipeline is we want to create a repository. So we can check in our code before we deploy it to the test environment. And thank you, Fernando, for putting in the Azure Services pricing link there. That is perfect. Okay, so it says, hey, we don't actually have any repo or a place to do source control. Why don't you go ahead and add some code? So what we do is we click the little initialize button here at the bottom to start our repo. There we go. And the reason we need to do that is it puts a README file inside the repository. All repositories need at least one file to become initialized. Okay, so that's all we have to do to set up our repo. The next thing we're going to do is give some permissions to access it. So source control is something you want to be secure. You don't want anyone to come in there and go ahead and delete your entire history of work. So why don't we go ahead and add some permissions to this? So I go to click on repositories right here. I clicked on project settings and repositories. Then I will click on that repository and security. And here are all of the groups of people that have access to it, right? These are just default groups inside of our project, and we don't really need to worry about them for now. What we do need to do is we need to give something the build service the permission to contribute. And contribute means add stuff to that source control folder called a repo. We do also want to go ahead and add one more, which is called the project collection build service. And I'll go ahead and click this and give it a contribute setting too. So these are two accounts which will help you to move the items across environments and place them in the repository. And by the way, after this is done, like I'm going to place in the chat a link to the build tools tutorial, which this talk is based upon. And it's a set of PDF documents which helps you to go ahead and set up your first pipeline for yourself there. So not only will you be able to use this video, you'll be able to have a PDF for you as well. Melody says, is this an alternative to Git or Bitbucket? And the answer is yes. So this is called an Azure DevOps repo. The source control technology it's built on is called Git, right? So Git is the underlying technology, and Git is used by GitHub, Bitbucket, Azure DevOps repos, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's actually the underlying technology there. Okie doke. So once we have that going, we do need to do a quick little install of the build tools because they don't just come out of the box. You have to go back to your organization that you're building it in. Look at extensions. You can see I have the Power Platform build tools right here, but you would click on Browse Marketplace and look for the Power Platform build tools. And there you go. It comes up right here. It says get it free. I've already downloaded, but what you do is you click it and it gives you access to the series of actions you'll need to export things across environments. Okay. So let's go back to our Portland ALM demo and start to build our pipeline. Just check in the chat there. Yep, so it's not a GitHub repository, it's an Azure DevOps one. Yep, that's 100% there, Fernando. And it says, Melody says, do you have to use Azure to build the pipeline? So I've only built a pipeline using Azure DevOps before. I know that the build tools are created specifically for it, Melody. So I don't know if you have to use it, but it is the recommended way to do it for Power Platform. And if there was some alternative you're thinking of, please go ahead and share it in the chat there. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our first pipeline. Exciting. And what I like about this is it's kind of like a more codey version of a flow. Click on Create Pipeline, then asks, where's your code? And we're going to click on the classic editor because we don't want to write our pipelines in something called a YAML file. We want to actually do it as in the drag and drop method. How many pipelines you created so far, says Fernando? I've created pipelines at about 10 to 12 different clients right now, Fernando. I've been in my job as a Power Platform consultant for about 2 years now, so pretty much every client I go to, I'll start to build some pipelines for them so I can practice good ALM. Okay, we'll select a source. So Azure Git repos, team project. The Portland ALM demo is already picked. We have the repository that we've created, and our branch is called main. Let's click OK. Next, I'll go and click empty job because we don't have a template and we're doing this from scratch. And by the way, that is okay. Okay, let's actually go ahead and build this sucker. What do you say? So first thing I want to do here is take a look at this is just called the agent specification. So Windows 2019, that's perfect. That means that in the background, this automation is going to run on Windows 2019. Sounds good to me. If it sounds good to you, next, click on this right here. So once again, you can see the team project is Portland ALM demo main. And now we'll click on our agent there. So everybody here in this room is already familiar with the concept of a flow, right? It's an asynchronous workflow that just kind of runs up in the cloud in the background, and you can run as many as you want at one time within reason. But in this case, we have something called an agent, and you can only run as many jobs as you have agents. So think of it as a worker, but like a computer worker, just someone like me, but maybe a cloud-based version of me. Don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, thanks for dropping by there, Frederick and Ron, for sure. Um, okay, one quick thing we want to make sure to do is click on this to allow scripts to access the OAuth token. It's going to be running the flows on our service account, and that's how that's how a Microsoft account knows that you're logged in using something called an OAuth token. Okay, next thing up, let's start to actually add some steps to this flow. And why don't we save it too? Let's call this Portland dev to source, because we're going to check it into the source control there. Let's add some steps. So I click the plus button on the little agent job. I start typing in the word Power Platform. And hey, these are the lists of actions that I can do inside of this repository, or sorry, this pipeline to go and move stuff from dev to prod. Okay, so what steps do I want to do? The first thing I want to add is the tool installer. So to do any of these actions, you actually have to boot up a console and start it and install a tool every time. We are going to publish our customizations. We can add that to the pipeline. That way, in case we forget to publish them, it can just go ahead and do that automatically for us, saves us some trouble. We'll set the solution version number. So as you create new solutions and move them across environments, it'll increment it by one there, and so you'll know that you're always putting a new version in, what version you're on. We are going to export and import some solutions. If I can find that. Oh, it's at the top there. This isn't in alphabetical order at all. Actually, what I'm looking for is unpack, because we need to unpack it into the repository. I'm going to do this twice, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Then I will, yes, leave that for now. Okay, so now we need to do some setup here. So the first step we need to set up is the publish customization step, and you can see there's a little red indicator right here. It means we need to do something. We need to authenticate, so we need to put in a username or a password. And Fernando is saying you have 2 export solutions, no import, and I'll say, yep, I agree. And we're just going to go with that for now, and you'll see why in just a moment. So we need to actually create a service connection here. And how I'll do that is I'll click on manage, create my first connection, generic. And the reason that we're doing this is because we need an account to actually go ahead and do the work for us right here. So we need to fill in a couple of details. The first thing we need to do is fill in the development environment's URL. So I can get that a couple different ways, but if I go to, what's the fastest way? If I go to the admin center here, that's pretty fast. I'll go and grab it. there we go. That is the environment for dev. I do have to put HTTPS in front of that. Next up, I'll put my username in, md@matthewdevaney.com. And so this has to be a system administrator account. Usually you just want it to be a generic one, right? Not actually a named user. Type in my password because it's going to be the one running the flows on the pipeline on behalf of me. And I'll call the service connection name Portland Dev and grant it access to all pipelines. Brilliant. So now we go back to over here, back to our pipeline. We click on the little refresh button, and now it shows up. Portland Dev. Absolutely perfect. So now the Portland Dev account will be running the pipeline. Just checking the chat here. Marcel says, assuming we can use a service principal if we don't want a connection tied to a specific user. Ah, never mind, I see it. Thanks. That's true, Marcel. You can use a slightly different method to go ahead and set up a service principal instead. You do have to do a bit of extra setup in Azure, in the Azure portal to create a service principal. And I'd be happy to connect with you after the presentation to tell you a little bit more about how to do that. Okay, next up, we're going to set the solution version number. A little bit of redundancy here. So we'll change it to Portland Dev. Next thing we want to do is type in the solution name. And so here we want to use this, the logical name of the solution, not the one with spaces, the display name. We want to use the actual solution name, and we just go ahead and put it in that field right there. Next up, for the solution version number, we're going to use the pipeline run number. So every time you run a pipeline, it increments by 1. And so I'm just going to go ahead and type in some versioning here. And you'll notice I typed in a little $sign in front of that with a bracket. And this says build number. And it's like a system variable where you can automatically detect which pipeline run just ran. I'll show you where I found that information in just a moment. One other little helpful tip, something else we want to do is we may choose to create like several copies of this pipeline. Like if we want to go ahead and add more in the future, like you move different solutions in the future. So I like to put my solution name inside of a variable. And how you do that is you type a little $sign and then you put inside of brackets your variable name. Then you come over here to the variables tab, type in your variable name, and then type in your solution name. And once you've done that, then it's happy. Yeah, no problem. No problem, Marcel. Okay. Next, we're going to export the solution. And I'm typing a little letter U behind this name because I'm going to export the unmanaged solution first, and then the managed solution second. And while the pipeline's running, I'll explain a little bit about why I'm doing both. So, yeah, this is a little bit of a interesting change here. I guess the build tools were updated recently and there's an extra field here. Not really sure what that does, but that's okay. We're going to use the same solution name as before, right? It's inside of a variable. And then we need to say, hey, where are we going to actually put this to when we download it? Well, usually I would just put this on my hard drive if I was doing it manually. You saw me do that and put it on my downloads folder. But if we're in Azure DevOps, we don't actually have that opportunity, right? It's up there in the cloud. I can't access my computer. So again, we need to put in another nifty little variable, nifty little piece of code here. And not to worry, this is all, in the written instructions that I'll pass off after we're done this tutorial. And we're going to do it just like this. There we go. Oh, I heard a little murmur there. Yeah, if you have a question, come on in and just say something, that's for sure. Maybe you don't like the .zop file. Maybe you prefer .zips. That's okay. Excellent. And here, yeah, we go on to the next step. Then we're going to unpack it into the repo. Here, what we do is we have to get the file from somewhere. So a moment ago, we dropped it into something called a staging directory. And then we actually have to go and place it inside of the repository. /inspections. Actually, this isn't called inspections. This is going to be called Contoso. We want to put it inside the Contoso folder. Then we'll give it the same name as that solution name and call it unmanaged. Perfect. Okay. We do want to make sure that existing files can be overwritten. That way you can do multiple imports to the repository. And then we're just going to follow this up by doing a very similar thing this time, creating a managed solution. And there is a reason that we're doing both. The reason that we're doing both here, see, I'm just copying over exactly the same values. The reason that we're doing both is, well, we want to place an unmanaged solution into the repository because we may want to edit the stuff inside of that later or use it like in development, right? We may want to revert back at some point, but we also want to grab things from the repository and push it into the next environment, which is the test environment. So that's why we're doing two things here. And I do have to check export is managed. One more little step here. Like that. Oh, not thinking about it. There we go. And I'm just doing some copy in here and changing unmanaged to managed. And I'll click manage just like that. One more additional step we need to do to put something inside of repository is run a command line script. So has anybody, oh, Fernando says zip or zop. Question, so the input file solution comes from the plain Power Apps and moves to the Azure DevOps repository, correct? Yes, that's the case. We're moving it out of a Power Platform environment and putting it into a repository in Azure DevOps. Okay, I'm going to hit command lines. I'm going to just skip ahead here, and because I think that are we shooting? What time are we shooting to end at here, Tina?
We're pretty flexible. We have until 7 p.m. technically.
7 p.m.
So another 70 minutes up to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, plenty of time. Go crazy.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to take up 2 hours of everyone's time here. Someone says, Tina, it's already 7:51 p.m. I suppose the case is
Pacific time. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's as they say, 7:50 p.m., 7:51 p.m., you know, everywhere.
Somewhere.
Somewhere. Okay. Yeah, really botched that saying. Is anybody in the room familiar with Git? Has anyone ever used Git before for source control? Do you like it? Do you not like it? It's known as a pretty tough skill. Yeah, academic understanding. Love it, says Heather Cermak. I think you might just be, the one person who absolutely loves it. Why do I say that? Well, it's a lot of writing in the command line. It's a lot of like learning commands that you have to type out and kind of like an old school adventure game and get them right. And fortunately, in the notes I have, there's just something you can copy and paste into this step right here, but you do have to use the command line to access Git. It is just a fact of life doing it from right here. So I'm going to copy and paste, and there's a bunch of code here, and it does a couple different things. It configures the username and email so you can tell, hey, who is the person who put this into the fancy source control folder. You'll have a little commit message. So, hey, what did we change in this iteration that we're publishing, right? Someone ought to write a note about that. And then finally, it pushes the code to the repo. Hey, yeah, that's okay. We'll talk to you later there, Jerome. Kevin says, I find Git is better. The GitHub extension within Visual Code Studio Code is not stable. Yeah, fair enough. Truth. And Sean Meyer says, do you mean Power Platform Unpack solution or Power Platform Unpack solution M, or does it matter? Yeah, good point there. So the shorter answer is no, it doesn't matter there, Sean. Like this is just a display name, but what I am doing is I'm typing a little M here to just denote that I am checking in the unmanaged version of the solution. Okay, just a couple more quick things before we set this puppy off. And by the way, if I were doing this like at my job, I would probably just be copying a pipeline that I made already rather than setting it all up for the first time. You can copy and clone things with yeah, as much as you want. I was gonna say with prejudice, you can do that. Okay, I'm just gonna create some quick variables here for my user email. Again, the reason I'm doing this is I do not like to hard code very much because who knows where it will be used in the future. And then I'll add a little commit message right there. Commit message.
Hey, this is Heather. I have a question.
Go
Would you
ahead.
say that this kind of replaces SSIS? I don't know if you've ever used that.
I have.
Okay, yeah, because this seems really, I've never used pipelines in Azure DevOps, but I've used Azure DevOps for repos or repositories. And it just, everything you're doing seems reminiscent of SSIS, but obviously more beautiful because
Oh.
yeah, SSIS is
Oh.
I don't know, clunky in my opinion. A lot of click and drag and drop.
I was gonna take a compliment there and be like, yeah, I'm pretty beautiful. No, just kidding. Is it me or is the code? No, just kidding. I'm not that full myself. So, like as I understand it, SSAS, the reason that exists is to move data. So, in the past, I've used SSAS to take, let's say, like a bunch of customer records and move them from development to production, right? And I assume that's what along the lines of what you had used it for. Is that right?
Yeah, to some extent.
Yeah.
Moving files to there's just a lot that you can do with it.
Yeah. So like I've used it to move data, but I use pipelines to move the components, the customizations, the apps and flows. And so I'm not going to claim I'm the world's expert on SSAS. I haven't seen people use it to move like apps and flows and solutions. But if you have, do tell me about that because it would be kind of interesting. Thanks for coming off mic for a question there. Fernando. By all means, you got your hands up there, buddy. Come on in.
You skipped my last question in the chat.
Yeah. What was your last question? It says, not you, man. Are you going to add another task to import the solution into an environment? And the answer is yeah. We're going to do that in just a moment. So what we're going to do here is we are going to take the solution out of development. We're going to put it into source control, right? The version control folder. And we're going to do that all in the context of this one pipeline here. And then we're going to create another little pipeline to move it to test into production with, stage gates like, hey, buddy, please approve my thing I'm moving into your environment, that type of thing. Does that answer your question there?
Yes, so I shall wait and have patience, no?
Yep.
Great,
It's like
great,
my good
thanks.
teacher friend always says, sometimes in a presentation, it's hard to go know where you're going if you don't show the start up front. And maybe that was the way to go. But yeah, that's how it's gonna work there. Just one other quick thing I need to do here. Just let me reference my little stack of notes. The fun thing about pipelines, I like to say, is the first time that you run them, they typically need like a little bit of troubleshooting, a little bit of TLC, but then every time thereafter, they tend to work pretty well. I just want to make sure I get this next step right here. So yeah, it's called publish an artifact. Okay, that should be the final step before I hit the button. Moment of truth. Okay, yeah, drop that. Okay, magic time. Let's go ahead and click save and queue. So this is asking for just a comment on the pipeline I've built. So I'll say first created pipeline. Then we can come over here to the variables and we can do a little message. So it's the first solution I'm putting into there. And I'll go and hit save and run. I see there's a comment coming into the chat there. I'll just address in a minute. So when we hit run, we get this little clock. It says it's been queued. There's our little worker, our little agent, and he's going to start doing stuff, or she's going to start doing stuff. And this is the part where you go and you kick back, you grab yourself a little Perrier, you go talk to your coworker in the break room, because it's going to do all of that deployment work for us. So it's kind of a set it and forget it thing. You just hit the button to go and do the work for you like a flow. And when you return, hopefully it is all as it should be. And yes, the U's and the M's inside of those names do stand for unmanaged and managed. So we'll let that run. I'm just clicking on the little link here that Fernando's pasted in the chat. Get started with Azure DevOps. And that looks like a nice little MS Learn learning path. Does anybody else here do certifications on MS Learn? Pretty good, I think. Of course, it helps if. Go ahead, Heather.
Oh, sorry. So my company, we use Jenkins. Would you say this is pretty comparable? Pipelines in Azure DevOps?
I've never actually used Jenkins to do a build before, Heather.
Oh, okay.
I come
This looks
from
really similar.
Does it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you mean the console looks pretty similar, or do you mean that the steps that it's kind of walking through and the visual nature of it is very similar?
I would say like what you're using this for. So like you're
okay.
trying to deploy code, right? To go from one environment to another, kind of trying to follow some kind of CI/CD or something like that. Yeah, that's what it seems like. Are you able to relate any? Let's just think here. So let's just say this does complete with success or it completes with failure. Is there a way for you to like automatically alert other users that that did in fact occur, like through like an email notification, or maybe you
Yeah.
can mention somebody? I'm just curious.
Yeah, as a result of this pipeline running on the service account, it does generate an email and automatically, and it will tell you if a pipeline that you set off does complete successfully or doesn't. Okay, so this is interesting. Here's an example of an error. Like I said, these things don't always work out the first time. And I'll tell you, I think that they've updated this recently because this code looks a little bit different from what I recall. So what does it say here? Failed Microsoft Power Platform CLI. The clear authentication result profiles and token cache removed. Oh, okay. It's saying that it already exists. So I made a little bit of an error here. Can't put two things in the same directory at the same time with the same name, can you? That wouldn't be good. And so when we're exporting the solution here, where am I looking? I do want to give this a little name. It says underscore managed. Just like that. Because, yeah, we just don't want to have things having conflicts because they have the same name. Just to save a little bit of time here as I'm rerunning my flows, I'm going to just nuke this publish customization step here. I would leave it in like at the end for sure, but it's something that takes a little while to do. So just as we kind of iterate through this pipeline, just gonna stop that. So I'll click stay, click save and queue. We're gonna try this again. Renamed file to managed. Renamed to manage attempt number 2. Attempt 2. And we'll hit save and run. Yep, so I'm sure we've all been there before, where we go to run a thing in a demo and we forget a step, and hopefully this time we'll get it right. Thank you, Scott. Thanks for stopping by there. And we will let this thing just run through again. And once this is through, we'll just do a quick little time check there. See what we can do to speed this along and get folks on their way. I do want to show you the kind of the stage gating and the approvals into the next environments if we can accomplish that here. Does anybody want to fill the dead air with the lovely sound of their voice?
Okay, it's Heather again. I have another question. And
Yeah.
this actually is not Azure DevOps, but more Power Apps related. I personally have never heard of Power Apps, and I guess like why are you choosing to use Power Apps? What's so great about it? I don't know. I thought that was going to get covered here, but it didn't. So now I'm going to ask.
Oh yeah, that's a big question there, Heather. And I guess I just want to ask you, how did you end up wandering into this call if you've never heard of Power Apps before? I think that's probably an interesting jumping off point.
Yeah, so I used to be a Power BI user and then ended up changing my career trajectory into data engineering. So I don't use Power BI, but I
Okay.
support other people at my work who do use Power BI, and I'm just a curious person. And I saw this and I looked at your website and I thought it'd be interesting.
And then I decided to do something totally different.
Yes.
Isn't that just the way it goes, right? Um, So yeah, Power Apps. Why Power Apps, and kind of like what is it, right? So I say that Power Apps is a like a low code way of building apps. And thank you, Jerome, for posting a question, posting some links in the chat there. Like I've developed apps in a couple of different ways. Like I've used like some Python, some JavaScript, and um, like some C# there. And I found that it's pretty simple to spin up a Power App because you can edit it in kind of a drag and drop like editor. You can use code that looks a lot like Excel, and like the real like benefit for me was like I had these a little bit of coding skills before I ever got into consulting, but I never knew how I could actually go ahead and deploy that at a company. I'm like, how do I set up a server? How do I share it out with people? How do I have security? Thing I like about Power Apps is it's all kind of built in. Like if you want to publish an app, you just literally click the save and publish button. You add people from your organization's directory like into a list of people who can use the app. And then if you ever need to update it, you just click the publish button again, and boom, it's kind of out there. Um, so yeah, that's why I like Power Apps. I could build a couple of apps before I got into it, but I could never quite figure out how to deploy them and just kind of keep them safe. And that's why I like that, and I like low code.
That's awesome. All right, cool. That I've got some things are coming in my head of some use cases at my company, and I love just sharing possible solutions with people to make their jobs easier. And yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. Hmm. It says that the path spec main did not match any files known to Git. So once again, that is kind of interesting. I will tell you, I am starting to get a little bit nervous here. Nobody likes to try and figure these things out on the fly and get that done, but let's just take a quick look here. So it says main does not match any, but yeah, from what I can tell here, this is the name of my branch. Don't tell me they like changed something recently here. God, they just updated something and okay. Let's see, there's a little fail button here. It told me that it failed. And right back to the start there. Yeah. Huh. So let me take another look at the code. So it does say that we're checking out from the main branch there. Bonus content, troubleshooting. This is great, even with errors. Thanks, Matt. I'm glad everyone is so sunny and optimistic. So what do I do when I have an error? I do the same thing as everybody else. What I do is I go to my good friend Google. So you see that there's an error message here. SRC ref spec main does not match any, failed to push to such and such. So that's the error. And so is this. So let's just do some quick Google foo. Azure DevOps. Ooh, debugging in front of a live audience. Yes. So it says yada yada, not able to check out a branch, blah blah blah. Try using git fetch instead. You can simply fetch the branch and then check out to that branch. That doesn't tell me a lot, but I might actually try that method.
You might have to do get branch -b branch name instead in your script.
Is that Heather again?
Yeah, sorry.
You might be my new best friend there, Heather. If you've ever seen that like Brothers movie, it might just be that, did we just become best friends? Kind of moment there. Okay,
Because
so
the dash B, I think it allows it to check out that branch or create the new branch with that name specifically. Pretty sure.
okay. Yeah, let's pop into that pipeline once more. Just one more minute here. Yeah, I wish it would just tell me like the exact like actual path of this, and that way I could have a better view into things. Well, that is just life sometimes. Okay, let's go to let's go to that pipeline again. Okay, so this is the little bit of Git code I have here. Heather, did you have an idea?
Yeah, so git checkout and then space dash letter B as in branch space main. And so what that does is it then is telling it that, hey, you created a new branch and it's called main, and that you're checking it out, and then it will then like it tells it that you should be able to then add and commit. I think
Okay.
that should work.
Yeah.
It may not, right?
We'll give it a try here. We'll give it a couple tries and then we'll see what we can do. It is it's curious, right? Because I do have the name main in there. But obviously my way of doing things is not working, so I'll just test branch. I think there's only so many times you want to see me debug, so we'll just try once and then we'll try one more thing potentially, and then if that doesn't work, maybe I'll just find something alternate to kind of get us through it. Yeah. Always a little bit disappointing when things change on you underneath your, you call it, right underneath your nose there, but what can you do? Yeah, they recently changed it to use the Power Platform CLI instead of something else. And I think that's what's happening. Why the requirements might be a little different. So there were a couple folks in the room who were going to the Power Platform conference, eh? You guys and ladies still around?
Yeah, I know we've got Steve going, Brent, one of our app dev guys, and Greg too. And Melody. Is Melody still with us?
Yes, I'm still on.
Awesome. Excited for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter?
Yes. I'm excited to learn a lot at the conference. I'm not quite as technical as maybe some of the people attending it. I'm more of a user, a business user, let's say. But I'm hopeful that there'll be enough there for me.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. I went to Ignite in 2019, and that's the nerdiest conference of them all, and didn't know much, and they taught me some things before I got into my consultant career there. I guess doctors go to Hawaii to go sit in the beach, and coders go to Florida to visit Harry Potter, hey? Harry Potter's village. Oh yeah, we did it. Yes.
Woo.
Gold star for Heather.
Yeah, Heather, put it right here.
Thanks. I mean, it was a shot in the dark. I was like, you didn't put the dash B, and I was like, I don't know about that. But I use Git all the time. Like, I was like, maybe I just do it differently.
Wow. I don't know why it wasn't required before, but I'm guessing when we pop into our repo here, maybe it's in this. No, that's so crazy. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Now you can see that this file has been checked into the main branch of the repository. If we go ahead and we click on the folders, we can see that, okay, so it's sit in this folder here. We have an unmanaged and a managed copy. And by the way, like there's folders for each one of the individual things that we unpacked. So like one of the neat things that you can do if you really like get into it here is you can see where things actually changed in the underlying code. Like you can put them side by side on a screen and say, hey, I want to see what changed from, today from yesterday. You can diff it, as it's called. And yeah, that's one of the fun things that you can do. It unpacks it to the source code level, and you can even add an extra step here to unpack your Canvas app even further and see what's inside of see all the formulas for that too. Okay, so let's quickly try and push through the next stage here, which is a release into the next couple of environments. All right, so now we're going to create something called a release. And a release is a special type of pipeline. So here you can do everything that you did inside of the pipeline, but you can also add fun things like approvals, right? Stage gates. Maybe we want Fernando or Jerome to approve it before it gets to the test or prod environment. And so that's one thing you could do. And another fun thing is you can say, oh, please put them in environments in this order. Go test and then prod and then, gold master, whatever. Yes, give the $5,000 USD to Heather, please. I'll wait for next year. That's pretty funny. So we're going to go ahead and create this next one here. And I will just go ahead and create an empty job. So this stage here, we're going to call test. We call it test because it's going to be our test environment. There we go. And just click off of that. We have to add something called an artifact here. So we'll choose our previous pipeline dev to source, and we'll say get the latest thing from source control there. I do want to make sure I get this this name of this artifact right, so I'm going to call this. Yeah, I think I'm just going to call it build there, build Portland, because we're here at Portland. Click add. So what this is doing is it's taking all of the items from the previous pipeline and letting us continue to use them. So we'll click add, and then we're going to do a couple of steps to move it into our test environment and then further on inside of our production environment. Okay, so we've got an environment here called test. We can edit its tasks just like this, and in much the same way. What we're going to do here is add some build tools, Power Platform, and here we are just going to import the solution. Oh, yeah, we always need to install something, right? Power Platform tool installer. Click the add button. And really, that is all we will need to do, except for setting it up. So let's just quickly add our variable names again here. So we want a solution name. And it's going to be called Contoso Device Order Management. There we go. Come back to the tasks here. So now we need to set up some other service connections quickly because now we're importing to the test and dev production environments. And just for the folks watching along here, it's going to be about I think 10 to 15 more minutes, and then we can kind of wrap this presentation here and can have question answer, whether it's about this or anything else. So I'll go to service connection. I'm going to create one for our test environment. Once again, I'm going to the admin center to grab the URL. Then I will place it back here. Type in my fancy username. Once again, this would typically be a user account that's unnamed, not belonging to any one person. We'll call this Portland test. and we'll grant it access to all pipelines. So once again, I'm just being a little bit paranoid here. Yes, that is the test environment URL. And good to go. So click save. And hey, just so we don't have to do it again, why don't we just go and do the production one at the same time? So again, I'm clicking over to my environments. Prod. There we go. HTTPS // username md@matthewdevaney.com. Super secret password. Sorry, folks. Portland prod. Hit save. And now I have connections to dev, test, and production. So here I go back to the pipeline that I'm building and I say, okay, service connection is test. We're going to get it from the build environment. And then we have a little question here we need to answer, which is, hey, where do we actually like get that file from anyways? Solution input file. So here we are going to start to type in a couple variables. I'll explain this in a minute, possibly while the file is while the flow is running. So earlier in our previous pipeline, we put it in a working directly. So we're going to pick it up directory. We're going to pick it up from there. It's in a folder called build Portland. It has the name of drop. And here we use the solution name _ managed, because that's where the file's at. And you might be thinking like, hey, how did he know like where that file lives? If you actually go to the pipeline that we just built, you can click on it to see your previous runs and click into it. And here you can see it created something called an artifact in a drop. And that's just kind of where it lives. If you copied the URL, you could see it's in those folders there. So let's go back here. Advanced, just got to make sure I'm not missing anything. So if I'm importing it, yada yada, looks good. Okay, we'll hit save there. And then we'll just do the same thing for the production environment. All I had to do is make a little bit of a copy, click on prod, change where the service connection was, and then good to go. Just need to do a couple other quick checks in here. Right. Can't forget to make it access that OAuth token. Very important there. Otherwise, you can't actually log in to do the updates. Okay, let's go ahead and save and kick this off. Lots of fun stuff going on. Okay. All right, moment of truth here. You have unsaved changes. Well, Microsoft, if I have unsaved changes, why the heck won't you let me save them? Maybe I'll just add something quickly and delete it. Okay. And then it just all kind of went away. I don't know. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, guys. That just reset. Oh, no, it actually got it. Okay. We'll just give this a name. We'll call this Portland deployment pipeline. Yeah, it just you guys all saw that, right? It just wouldn't let me save anything. God, that's a mean bugger. Okay, we'll create this release. We'll say it's a first attempt, hopefully the first and last one. And now it's going to go ahead and deploy that to the test environment. So right now it's queuing up and it's going to do all those tasks that I was talking about, just showing before. So to see what's going on, I click on it, I click on logs. It's doing some fairly codey things, and then it's gonna boot up here. Then once it's imported into that next like in the test environment, I'll just show you quickly how to enable approvals. Just wanted to make sure that this was working first. If we run into any problems, I'll ask Heather. She'll set me straight. Then good to go. But yeah, as this is running here, like you can start to think about like why this is a good thing, that it's making you deploy the solutions like to environments in a different order, like in the same order, right? That way you always make sure things are tested before they get to prod. Did you have a fight with your cat? Fernando, do you want to tell me what that means?
In your face, you have a scar in your cheek.
What's that?
You have a scars in your cheek.
Scars, like right here?
Uh-huh.
Oh no, that's just like adult acne or rosacea. I've just had acne my whole life. But
Cat fight would have been more fun.
yeah, well, maybe I'll go rustle him up at the end of this call here. I could bring him on the chat. You guys could think about which picture he might have been in on my blog. Okay, so it says it did the job successfully. So let's go back to this pipeline here. So we can see it succeeded in test. We probably should have put a little stage gate on this to make sure that someone was manually approving it before it went to test, but you can see it's quickly going to prod. Let's go on over to our test environment and solutions. Hey, look at that. There's our Contoso device order management solution. And that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted to move something from development to test to production. And the final part of this pipeline is running right now. Just one more quick thing I want to introduce here before we stop the recording. We can also go and edit this pipeline to put in like stage gates and approvals. So here, if I want to add a approval before something goes into the environment, I can click on pre-deployment conditions and I can enable pre-deployment approvals. Here I can put a list of approvers. In this case, because, well, it's just me and my environment, I could put, my own name right here. You could put in a couple different policies. Hey, does the person who's approving it, should we just make them log in to make sure that they're really them? Should we make sure the same person who's pushing it isn't the same person who's approving it, like that type of thing? And then we go ahead and we just hit that. We should probably do the same thing for prod. And here, you would want to assign the approvers as the people who like own the environments. So if you have a dedicated QA tester, QA testing team, you'd want someone on that team to be the approver. Same with prod. You want the approver of prod to be the business area or the business function that is going ahead and approving that. Another kind of like neat thing you can do here is if you click like the add button, let's say you like also want a sandbox environment of prod, right? What does that mean? Like you want an exact copy of prod for some reason, just so you can go do like further testing or something like that. Like you could actually go ahead here and start to create like multiple like side by side environments, right? Kind of simultaneously like that. You could have a sandbox of prod, so that maybe your production users want to go test something like an operation, but they don't want to actually kill any of the data in their real environment. So they could just have a little sandbox and it would have all the same stuff. So let's quickly go back to releases and save. So you can see that this one is still working. And if we were to go ahead and create like yet another release, let's say we made like more changes, this time it'd say, hey, an approval is pending on you. So I would get an email in my like Outlook inbox. It would bring me to here. I could put in a comment and I could approve or reject it. And so that's like the last little thing I like to do to make sure things aren't just getting pushed into environments willy-nilly. Why did the solution in the test environment say success 1 hour ago? This one right here? Is that the one?
Yes.
So this is like version 132. I think that that is like just a UI bug there, Fernando. I think
And
that that's, it looks
the
like
version
there's,
number 132, where does
yeah.
that come from?
So do you see up here in my pipeline run 132?
Yes.
So this was the run that we did to move it into the source control. And so it puts that exact same number like onto the solution. So you can kind of reconcile those two things together, the pipeline like run number and the solution. And then it like when you move into the next environment, it has that number there too.
Okay.
So,
Great.
so 132 all around. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if no, it's still working. Okay. So it'll get into that production environment eventually. It's still kind of important there. But in the real world, we want to make sure we have a little stage gate in place to make sure that it's just going and going. Okay, folks. Well, we got through it. We absolutely got through it here, 1 hour and a half, and I appreciate you all sticking with me. Appreciate the folks that came off the call and played along and answered some questions, asked some questions, and big shout out again to Heather Cermak. Thank you so much.